Hello boys, willkommen zu einem neuen Video. I'm trying to keep this quick. I'm just going over the decks that I'm considering for the qual. Most likely is going to be Legends, and then the other two ones I'm also going over quickly, but the gameplay in this video is mainly about Legends and some Abzan Thrull. So this is one new addition, I think, only in Tajic, Legion's Valor from the Alchemy new set. So this is an indestructible haste creature that gets other creatures onto the board, of course only one creature a turn, with mana value equal to the +1/+1 counters that are on Tajic. So it's pretty good by itself, and of course a nice target to have with a Crucius Legends deck. And we also have some ways to increase the +1/+1 counters a little bit faster in the deck, in particular inti, I guess, because you can put multiple counters on it, similar to that would be Pakal, which also works if you stack the triggers on the stack that way, so that you get the counters on it first. So that's the new card in it, and now I'm just quickly, I think, going over the cards overall in the deck. I think Scroll and Halfling do not need an introduction. I have a main deck Might because there are just so many relevant artifacts and enchantments overall in the meta and pretty much most decks. So you could play two sideboard, but I have one main, one side. You could also play more of them, but I quite value the cards that I have in the 75, both in the main and the sideboard. One thing maybe to notably point out versus the One Ring or a card like the Lockdown, you can sacrifice it in response before they get to draw an extra card or a single card with the ring if no burden counters were on it, or before your board gets exiled, which can be relevant, for example, if counters are on your creatures, also like lifelink counters from Arwen. This is, I think, worthy to point out. I think besides one of the obvious ones like Crucius, one of the, or some of the, or the three best cards in the deck are like Lord of the Rings cards, and I think this might be one of them. I would probably call Elven Farsight, Frodo, and Arwen. And interestingly, these aren't maybe the ones that you would have expected in that spot, but this is basically just kind of Ponder, just Scry, get a creature is super broken, I think, for 1 mana in a creature deck, because you can do things like keep 1 landers on the draw. If you have, at least this is my rule of thumb, at least 2 1 and or CMC2 cards in hand, so therefore you're kind of not in too bad of a spot in case you wouldn't get, let's say, your 3rd land again on the draw, but it also shouldn't come up too often in the first place. But yeah, just mid game, late game, like post turn 5, 6, 7, just making sure to put those lands away. I can't tell you how often I'm just putting 2 lands away and getting a creature for it to be kind, not really, but kind of like a draw tree is just so good later on, and as I just tried to point out, like insanely good in the early game, both trying to make sure to not get too many lands or just to get your lands. Super powerful card. Can flush it back with Charsel. You can set up like a Kellan. You can set up like your inti so that you get the land. It's insanely powerful and really good by itself, but also a synergistic card in the deck here. So Kellan is also another way to have actually a 1-drop. You can notably flash back Kellan from the graveyard with the adventure side, also with the Charsel, which is something to keep in mind. Then you both get the Kellan into the adventure zone and have gotten your map. Maps, as pointed out earlier, also relevant with our both like +1/+1 counter payoff cards in Pakal and Tajic, but of course just good in a legend deck in general, especially if a couple of your creatures get payoffs by attacking, so therefore powering up those creatures is quite relevant, and one of the best cards in the format, of course only for archetype like this, is Flowering. Giving +2/+1 and ward 1 is insanely powerful, and we have a bunch of ways to discard them. And yeah, Kellan has the ability to generate card advantage. And yeah, then ways to discard the Flowering and to help with Kellan, by the way, are Frodo and Merry too. I'm saying this because I'm always trying to, I think this is like a percentage thing, and it worked out pretty nicely for me, and like a little tip, I guess. I'm always putting the draw trigger first, and not depending on what the last draw was. So if the last draw was a land, I'm putting Kellan first, because it's kind of more likely. It's a little bit more in the one direction than the other, but it's more or less 50-50. So I'm always trying to take a non-land if I drew a land first, and vice versa. So those two are the draw ones. I guess inti would also count in. So this just straight up draws, which is of course super strong, and one of the rare like tree of legends in the deck, legend creatures in the deck. As you can see, this is pretty much only Crucius, Frodo, and Merry. for that reason. Just really nice with flowering, also with the haste, and then Frodo also has this loot ability through the ring. And this, I think, is the other super strong card in the deck, and maybe one of the best, or if not the best, because it's just like a repetitive removal spell for creatures. Because creatures have to block Frodo if it's the ring bearer, and because of its toughness it rarely dies. And even if it gets like multi-blocked, if you have the stage 3 on the ring, then all the creatures blocking him have to be sacrificed. So a very powerful effect when it comes to that. It can also just, even if it is not buffed up, and being able to take out like bigger creatures, just get in for a bunch of damage with the last stage. And of course giving unblockable to other things is quite valuable. Giving the legend kind of rule to other things is relevant, especially if you have like flowering in play. You want to in general think about whether to put the ring on Frodo or something else. Like sometimes Frodo is clearly the best creature on the board, and if they're kind of likely to have removal, you want the ring to at least stick around and then get like additional loots. And loots are probably the most obvious or maybe even best thing on the card, and are kind of nice with a card like Inti too. Like Inti works with Crucius because Crucius works at the end step. So since Inti says until the next end step, and this happens like within the end step, you can play him during technically the opponent's turn if it's a reprieve until the next turn, which is kind of nice. But yeah, Frodo also works with Inti, which is a super cool thing, and yeah, makes those 3 cards like very good creatures in the 2-drop spot. And then I also have 1 reprieve in the main. The other ones are in the sideboard, which is like board vibes mainly. You could play more in the main. I'm just at 1 right now because of the power level of the other cards. And then Arwen, I think, might be also one of the best cards in the deck, because it just makes it so hard for like any creature-based strategy, like of course the aggro decks, but even like in the mid-range matches where it ends up being a life total race in the end eventually anyways. Just makes it so hard to brace you, basically, especially if you're on the draw, right, where you have to have some sort of comeback or swingy potential in the deck. And this is just what Arwen does, because you cannot attack into her, especially if you have 2 or less toughness, of course, if just she's on the board. And then that becomes also true for 3 or less toughness, or even more if you have power 2 or 3 other creatures on the board and an extra mana open, because she can put a +1/+1 counter on herself and another creature on the board and give then that other creature indestructible. So it becomes really hard to attack into her. And then of course she has this like super swingy potential, because she also puts a lifelink counter on her and the other creature, a counter, so it stays. So that's of course really insane with a card like Tajic, of course, again, especially in aggro matches. So yeah, this is the reason why I put them into the main deck now. The Arwens used to be in the sideboard, but yeah, the decks I'm losing to with this deck basically are like on the play aggressive decks, or at least used to be. So this is a measurement against it, and of course it's just a decent card versus like mid-range decks or even control decks if they have removal spells. Notably --/ effects like Lonely End or Virtue, or Excel effects can still get Arwen or Tajic. Drowsel, obviously insane versus removal spells. With our 1-drops, they want to remove the squelps, they want to remove the halflings. We have all these ways to discard things, keep that in mind. Super good in this deck, super nice with Elven Fireside. Just the 1-off copy I think is perfect for me, or for this here. Glissa I want in the deck also for creature combats, like again just a way to make it tough for the opponent if you are on the draw. And then I also want at least a second way in the deck to fight like lockdowns or some sort of really good enchantments, like the Insidious Roots one or one of the Boars anthems. I think it's very relevant to have some sort of enchantment removal in the deck. And of course Glissa is just a good card. You could switch her up. I, for example, had Squee for a long time in the deck. I really did not want to take it out because it's just so nice with flowering. But yeah, I think the reality is if you do not have flowering, since I don't have that much removal, Squee just often cannot attack. Even the control decks have often Rusko and or Oracle. And this would be the removal spell of my choice in the deck. I have 1 more in the sideboard, just because it's 1 mana, just because it can deal 18 damage with lifelink. Of course, this is not usually usual to other creatures. You want to make sure to have ward or protection or some sort of indestructible, or the opponent to be tapped out, or face up information that I don't have the card most likely to use it, because you can get blown out by it. But if you get the hang of it, then this should be very good very often. And then of course 3 copies of Crucius, probably don't have to explain it. The thing is with Crucius and Glissa, it's kind of a splash, which can be sometimes challenging to cast. I have those 8 legend lands, some black sources here, and the crossroads, but keep in mind I have those halflings and the elven farsights too, to make the mana based almost always very smooth, and very smooth for that is also relevant for my big finisher in the deck, the Sledgehammer Joda the Unifier. This can be, I think, also a Cerise. This can be a Jero and Hazaret. Definitely tried that one also a couple of times. I think you will see it in the last match too. But yeah, I settled for Joda because the buffing effect, besides just being, as I just tried to point out, so synergistic in this deck already, is just so good because it's so big. Like, Joda itself is so big, it makes those creatures so big, it's just good. Like, you have to face the facts. Since it's so nice in this deck with Crucius to just have top end like this, it makes a ton of sense. And of course it generates also card advantage if you play legendary spells from hand, so also Flowering. I'd love to have, like, I'm considering a Frodo in the sideboard or maybe even the main deck, because Joda is actually kind of consistently hitting the board because of Crucius and Halfling making stuff uncounterable, by the way. So this is a consideration, maybe sideboard, if it's just, the thing is just, there's just no place, but you know, the 1 mana Frodo, which can get lifelink. The thing is I need like black and or white, and I'm really not good at doing that. Maybe because of Crucius Treasures, but Halfling is not really helping with that. But yeah, if you want other things to cascade in with your 2-drop, legendary 2-drops, then Scroll, then I think Frodo can be a consideration. Also if you're down on wild cards, also like if you're down, like, I'm by the way not recommending crafting this, because this is just a ton of, except those, I guess, wild cards. Only if you would have cards like that. I would maybe recommend the new multicolored Anthem, which is just, I have a number of reasons, but I'm not gonna go over it now. I have just so many ways to get rid of extra copies, and the first Flowering is just basically 2 Anthems in 1, and the ward is so good. So yeah, but that could be also a budget option, the multicolored new Anthem from the latest Alchemy set. And yeah, that is pretty much the deck. Got 14 green for Halfling and Elven Farsight. Got those strong legend lands, notably Doorkeeper Thrall as a 4th in the sideboard, which works really well in this deck. Besides of Frodo, I take him down to 1 or 0 copies usually when I bring them. I got Tarina for Graveyard Hate and can protect the humans, top-end humans, which can be relevant again versus exile removal, like Lonely Ends or Virtue of Loyalties with the Tajic. And I don't have that many humans, but some of the key ones are humans, which is kind of relevant. But yeah, it's in here for Graveyard Hate. Maybe I'm blending in the matchups where I use those card against, because I can't think of all of them right now, and if I say something about it, I want it to be both correct and complete, or rather at least towards my current knowledge. Yeah, also got 1 more forest for the rare Field of Ruin matchup, or whatever is legal. I think that rotated, I don't know. Okay, so this is Legends, probably the one of my choice. Second that I would use for the qualifier, maybe. Second most likely is Abzan Thrull. I'm just showing the list here. I'm not gonna go over all of them for time reasons. The matches already take long enough. Loam Speaker, Wren, really nice with the manlands, in particular Fortress swings for 8. Yes, you tap this card, swing for 8, pretty insane. You will realize that when you play against it, this is not something you want to be facing. So, but yeah, it's a Thrall deck. I removed the Peddlers to the sideboard. I removed the Bats. It usually used to be, it originally used to be a Bats and Peddler deck. But yeah, I wanted to find the best Thrall deck, and this is the best thing I was able to come up with. Notably has Seed of Hope, can find even removal spells or other things than creatures in this deck. Can find virtues in the sideboard, very important versus aggressive decks or the indestructible creatures. This is versus legends, this is versus Convoke, or also legends. Notably works against the legend combo cards, also even like Tajic and Boromir, so I can definitely bring it there, but I have this over something like Gig's Command because Convoke is just so fast. Like if you're on the draw, there's just no time. And then some of the other sideboard cards that I already showed, but it's pretty straightforward, just endless value, removal, card advantage, Sheldred, GG. And this I played the least, but I think it's also actually very good. This is just considerations, but by the way, a very good idea. You can play Izzet with like Overcooked, and this is like the kind of like new card from the set that from the latest Alchemy set that makes it definitely in those kind of decks because of its power level. I just think the mana base is kind of clear reason for me why I would play this over Izzet, which is also really good. Just such good mana with the fast land, and you got the anchorage as well. And yeah, I think this also is good in making Navigator work, right? Because it can give it evasion / flying with the Steel Seraph, which is super relevant because this Fricker has to attack. I got some removal spells, but it's just not so easy to attack. But the thing is, you can just trigger it by just double spelling with almost anything in this deck. So I think this is a very good deck. It has a lot of potential. Of course, ways to maybe change it, but yeah. It's also rather cheap, so yeah, definitely I think a good, I mean not too cheap, but I think a rather good budget option to try out. All right, so yeah, now I'm starting with some matches with the Abzan Thrull deck, and then the legend ones. The first one is without commentary as well, and then the other legend ones are with post commentary. Have fun, bye bye. Okay, hello guys. I'm gonna add some commentary now, some post commentary. Okay, so opponent with a black land here, and we get the turn 1 halfling, which is nice, but we don't really have the payoff yet. Like no unfair 3-drop or 4-drop to ramp into, so gotta start a little slower here and see where it takes us. So here I think I made a misplay, by the way, relevant to point out. I also take back the might here because they could have a Virtue of Loyalty or the token for it, because I was putting the ring on the halfling, which makes a lot of sense in general to put the ring on something else. In case if Frodo is like the kind of best creature on the board, which the opponent wants to remove. But in this case, since I knew they have black mana and were about to make their turn 2 play, it could have been that I have the bet, and I was definitely thinking about that shortly after I made my decision. And this is definitely another indicator of always trying to think about carefully where you put the ring. Because I probably explained it in the intro, but Frodo forces creatures with power equal or less to block it. So now they want to block with the 2/2, of course, but that does not work. And yeah, any creature that is able to block, or at least one creature that is able to block, Frodo has to block, and it can be blocked by creatures with greater power. So I had to put the ring or leave the ring there on Frodo in the beginning and not put it onto the halfling, which sometimes makes more sense. But luckily it didn't get punished. They didn't play a bet on turn 2. So yeah, because of course they can attack if I miss the window for a turn. And then it's tapped and can, or is not forced to block. So I drew Choda here. I'm playing, I'm not sure if I had the mana here. I think I might have, but I'm playing around Reprieve anyways. Of course, pumping up Frodo again, creatures again forced to block, and opponent puts in the concession. Here's the sideboard, which you could have stopped for. And yeah, that's just Frodo. Broken Lord of the Rings card. Like, it's very, very annoying to play against, I imagine, for most decks, right? Because most decks have cheaper creatures or cheaper or creatures in general. Honestly, in this deck with Joda or Flowering of the White Tree or multiple ways to pump it up. I even had a case of taking out a 4/5 dinosaur, which they ramped out on curve on turn 3 with Flowering and Arven, forcing it to block, and then they had to sacrifice it because the ring was on stage 3. So yeah, Frodo can take out Frodo does take out smaller creatures usually, but also in this deck can take out bigger ones, which is a huge problem for a lot of decks. Very, very powerful card. This is also a powerful card. Elven Farsight, I decided to play that over the on-curve 4-drop with Tajic because of Reprieve again. They could also have Lonely End, but I'm playing around Reprieve here. So Jazl gets something to flash back here right away, which is of course a neat combo. I would play Farsight either way. But yeah, this is why you actually can play Jazl in this deck, I think. Aside from the opponent wanting to remove the other powerful 1-drops that I have in the deck, or a card like Haywire Might, which puts itself into the graveyard. And yeah, now even if they would have something like Reprieve, we still get our Scry 6 and draw 2 cards, which is of course very valuable. Telling my Jazl to get lost. Of course, this is a pretty laughable removal spell against this deck, or a lot of decks, but people just copy deck lists or don't understand maybe that the resources that I give to others are quite valuable. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but yeah, in this deck both extra lands and counters are kind of huge. So I'm obviously floating colorless mana here in response, which we can still use for the map here. I know there's Haywire Might on top, so just gonna quickly keep that and get straight to stage 2 of Tajic. Tajic gets a flyer technically next turn, then a Spark Trooper I think is the name. Just a big hasty lifelinker that has to sack itself at the end step, and then Aurelia. Let's stay on rank 5 here. Okay, so here I forgot to record right away, so we are on turn 3. So I was going halfling into the Crucius, and then you can play Joda turn 3. This is another thing that that the deck can do. Crucius Treasure on turn 2. With Halfling Ramp on turn 1, can play Joda on turn 3. And Crucius, of course, can find Joda rather easily. Cascade into Flowering of the White Tree here. Get to attack right away. And of course, this is a potential downside for this kind of like ramp spell, the new one from the Sultai deck that Crokey's popularized at one point. But they could have with this also the chance to like ramp into a board wipe, which could be then quite good again. Also the sideboard was there visible again. Here kept a one lander, which this deck is able to do because of Elven Farsight. A good showcase because of that. So now I can set myself up for the following turns. Even if there's like creatures, I can just put them all besides one to the bottom and make it quite unlikely to break. It's yeah, very unfair card to have access to an alchemy. Basically, ponder pretty fair. Decided to play Flowering here because of both Stern Scalding and Cutdown. For the same reason I'm going for 2-drop 1-drop here, because Crucius also can get Scalded or Cut Down or go for the Throated, whatever. And Halfling can also prevent future Scaldings. Could have played Halfling first. We baited out, but I'm not even sure if Halfling or Mary is better, because if I miss the land here, I can play this Tajic, for example, or double spell. Yeah, that's a way to remove Tajic in the format. The Lonely End. Not too many people play it, but Crocus has it on his list. Virtue of Loyalty and this are like the main ones, besides like Exile effects or Glistling Deluge maybe. But yeah, Joda's on the board. Expected to be wrathed or moved here, but luckily it stays alive maybe. I mean, it has to be, unless they... I'm not sure if they played an untapped land because it has Ward 1, so even Go for the Throat had a rather tough time. So I wanted to go for Farsight first, but I Cascade, so there's no point in playing that right now. I'm gonna find Inti here. Inti is interesting because I get to Rummage here, so now I want to Farsight, probably because I have not made my land drop yet. I want to put a, of course, creature on top. Can also scry a second Flowering away, which is another thing with Farsight in this deck, just preventing you from getting multiple legends, just super strong to scry. And now I can use Inti by not generating card disadvantage for myself. I'm gonna decide to put the, like, obviously I'm getting rid of the third, I guess in this case, Flowering. I'm gonna go for the Joda here, because if they block, because if they have to wrath the spot anyways, right? This way we deal 11 damage instead of 3 if they then, because if they have wrath in hand, they always jump the Joda, and we deal obviously a lot more damage this way. And I got to make my land drop with the decision that I made here to go for Elven Farsight for combat and set up the land here. and I drew another extra card with inti because inti plus Crucius is another thing. And now they have the board wipe, which they needed to, as pointed out. But as you can maybe see here, the land drop that I made here last turn was really relevant because I can now double spell with the 3 drops, and I can still hold up Arwen, which is of course huge. Which is also, by the way, the reason why I don't play Skrelv here, because I want to hold up Arwen. A tutor, play a dude. Probably not the dude they want to play with his creature decks though. Now this is of course unfortunate because the indestructible does not work here, but maybe you also see it here if they don't have a removal for Bakal, and I'm not sure if they can have it. I think this is like Selesnya color signet over there, I don't know. They basically would need another edict, right, because it has a ward, like even Go for the Throat would do it. And now it gets its second counter, and with the flowering we have just 2/2/2, so I was again cutting it. I was thinking for a second, but this was then rather clear once I realized it, to put the counter there in the response. Right, back into the next match here. Going for Farsight here probably over map token. I do like to make the map token on turn 1 if I have 3 lands over a couple things, not halfling, not Skrelv in general, but I do like to make the map quite a bit, but I have to set myself up here and try to make sure to not brick on lands, both not brick on lands, and if possible find a land for Crucius here, which I did. Black Source, that is. There's Tyvar in the grave, by the way, Surveillant, probably an indicator for the root stack, which has become rather popular with the addition from the, I'm not sure of the first part of the name, but the Crawler, which is kind of like Kethis, which can combo, can act both as value, just value, or just an over-the-top combo with the Insidious Roots deck in Alchemy. It's a pretty good deck. But we're on the play here, I think. And yeah, I just talked over it. Yeah, Frodo just struck again. Nice. That seems like a fair card. Yeah, you can just play Flowering, and the opponent is forced to block with the creature. It's pretty unfair. Could have played Crucius. I think here I'm trying to draw my land because I have 2 draw steps, both the Frodo Ring and Mary, so I really would like to double spell here if possible. And I can still just use the map if I'm not able to find an untapped land here. Also, I put the ring notably on Mary here. I'm not sure if I forgot about Frodo's ability or if I just wanted to deal more damage because the opponent is forced to block, and I kind of don't want him to block, but it was probably right to just leave it on Frodo the ring. Force a doggo to block. And for that reason I'm probably just putting the ring back in a sec. Here's the roots. But yeah, it's just this is not a good matchup for them with a board state like this here. Yeah, now you can see all those 3 strong 2-drops in action. They are good individually, but even better together. Always put Mary first, and then the ring second. Get as much information as possible before I'm deciding whether to use inti or not. Pretty sure I'm getting rid of the Scourge, and now inti triggers again, which is again another combo of the deck. I can't get rid of this land because I just made my land drop anyways, and might as well just pump up one of the creatures and give it trample. I decided going for Mary, but maybe it was actually Frodo because Frodo has to be blocked, and they're blocking, probably not blocking two things anyways, so might as well give the trample to Frodo, but it does not matter too much here. I can't do it this way because Plaza gives green for Halfling because of Frodo. But also I should have played Halfling first to give the Halfling the ring in some scenarios. I'm just pointing this out, obviously was not relevant here. Here's the sideboard as it was when I was playing. I have 1 less Linvala in the final version. This one is very close to it, obviously. But yeah, because of Crucius, right, you're pretty likely to find her anyways with the extra Cruciuses, so I made an extra slot available in the sideboard. And you could double spell here. Oh, that's a pretty decent one. Not too bad, but obviously pretty good. It's the crawler. I can play Crucius here, or I can play it with the land. Just going for Crucius here, I take it because I want to level up with it. I don't have a lot of resources to play with, so gotta make use of what I got. So, although obviously I want to keep this haul here quite badly with the 3 pain lands and no red land available, I need to make use of my resources here. And I'm also going for the block since I have the second Crucius and this is one of their best cards. I do have the Drana to shut it down, but it still puts stuff into the graveyard, like duplicates, and they could have just removal for Drana, so play it safe and take the trade. Tyvar into a flyer. Of course is useful versus my flyer. So I expect a block here. Arvin is pretty good draw, because now even if they do top deck removal, I can protect Drana, which is pretty game deciding kind of, because yeah. I also have the life advantage potentially again, because those lifelink counters add up quickly and I get the protection too, and I get Crucius to start tick up. But there's second Tyvar, which is not bad with the roots here, so let's see what they find. Just another propagator. I mean, I say just, it's not bad, but so I hear him trying to figure out what abilities Drana has, but the opponent decides to concede. Maybe it was a little bit premature, but okay. So here I have also Farsight in the land, but I am on the play. I'm only keeping 1 landers on the draw with Farsight if I have at least 2 1 and or 2 drops. That's kind of my rule of thumb. Maybe I pointed that out in the intro already. Here's an interesting one. What would you do? Would you keep the land or not? Would you keep the flowering or not? Because you can curve, right? With Arvin, Skrulf, flowering, you can curve that way. I'm deciding to not do that, because I have Crucius in hand. I have another black card in Gliss, and I have of course the red cards. I need not only black but red anyways. Of course, red black even, and I just want to set myself up for the future here. And since I have enough red in the deck, so for example, he withdrew a red card as the next spell. This would have not been good in the long run potentially. Since I have enough red in the deck to have it on turn 2, I'm kind of likely to draw it. Of course, it's not a promise, but this is the reasoning behind my scrying decision here. And I got rewarded for it. Could have got not rewarded, of course, but I think it was still quite reasonable to go for this. Since again, even if it's just a red source, I can play Arvin and then can also play all the other like red cards or Zelaznia cards, which are most of the cards in the deck anyways. But this way around, I set myself up to draw a red source. Or ideally a legend land, as I did. Okay, Crucius is online. Farsight has a look. Look number 2, sorry, with the Chazal here. So definitely a power of Jostle, going for Halfling here. Because, of course, that's better than a treasure. I would have liked to use it for Crucius, but probably quite valuing Halfling being in play. Don't want to go for Frodo, but gotta go for something, and probably want to have Arwen stick around. Joda is, of course, the obvious play to make. I think I put a land on top. I am not remembering, but I don't know. I haven't seen it just now, but I think I remember putting one on top. I'm not sure now. They're attacking because they get to draw with Radic. I was also thinking of double blocking with Halfling and Crucius because I don't really need Crucius anymore. And Halfling and Crucius have both 3 toughness. Was definitely a consideration. But because of the Joda here, the Crucius is now so big and also adds as a extra buff to the teams. I really want to have it stick around. And yeah, green removal works versus Radic, which is nice. The sideboard. Good hand. Get a curve out. Can play Flowering on turn 2, but I want to probably just start with Frodo anyways, especially if I have Scroll of Protection up. Unless they have Reprieve, but yeah, just always go for Frodo here. Maybe I don't know. I wanted to like check if they have Virtue, but the problem is if I pass and they have Reprieve instead, then I can't get in with an attack, right? Because yeah, so I decided to go for Frodo there still before combat. Going for Arwen over Crucius because of the fast line, so I can double spell next turn. I mean, with Crucius, technically I could still double spell next turn, right? Because it makes a treasure, which is the reason why you want to go for reason why you go for, or want to go for Crucius in general. But I don't know if they have a second Reprieve, right? And then I would not be able to double spell next turn. So I think that was a rather clear one. And here can hold up Arwen in Indestructible for Crucius, even by playing the Scroll, because Crucius makes a treasure, which is quite key here. Quite key here. Right, Joda. The opponent plays Mardu, but with Roaming Throne, which is quite interesting. Because Mardu actually has quite some strong humans. We saw this in like the last or the one before the last kind of like alchemy popular phases, right? Crocus was popularizing like a Mardu deck because they have like Crucius, the Overseer from Mardu is one of the best alchemy humans or Boros alchemy cards, or Boros alchemy cards, and then you get Peddler too, so yeah, it makes sense to double up the triggers of those at the very least. Can I get rid of the land here? I was trying to make Arwen into a tree with the map, so since it did not work, I have to use inti and want to bait out a block of the Roaming Throne, which they're going for. Not sure if they're planned on doing that. That works versus people who are beginners or don't know about the ability of Arwen. But maybe it was also a bait to get rid of Indestructible. We'll have to see. And I do actually have Brotherhood's End. So either they top decked it or it was intentional to throw away their 4/4, but can't really imagine that because they would have the Roaming Throne stick around. Luckily they had another removal spell. I was going for Scroll because of Virtue, right? They had a black source, and this way they are not able to Virtue Arwen, or maybe they are, because Arwen, no they're not, because I would go for black and then they can target it with Virtue. That's why I paid 2 life here with Scroll. Jostle, of course, was a very good draw. Basically just gets the cards back that I just lost. one by one. And had instant protection with Charina. And now also from scroll. Now Joda is there, I can remove their pick. The board is big, Josel gets stuff back. That's just value legends for ya, bruh. A lot of value. Okay, looks like another faster start here on the play. Interesting to see if I want to go for Flowering or Frodo. So, because it's a creature deck, I do want to go for Frodo, set it up. But I mean, I will probably just go for Farsight here first either way, but that's good. I want the land because I want land 4 anyways, probably. And I can still play it next turn if I'm going for Tajic. Can't play it if I want to double spell, but at this point I decided to go for Flowering into Tajic probably. Wait, I can't double spell because I have to play the 2-drop here, but yeah. And we get Tajic ticking by playing it earlier. Then Azumara, the new Alchemy card, which is quite powerful. Quite a fun card, has a good spellbook. I also crafted a couple copies of her, but I think this deck is a little bit better for now. Can make the non-legendary creature legendary, notably, which is quite relevant with the Flowering of the White Tree. Can curve out here, get Josel into play. Josel can flash back our side, but yeah, was a little bit too fast of a start. Got a decent hand, a pretty good hand actually. Very good hand. You could also check out the sideboard changes, by the way, from just now. I got one Haywire Might main anyways. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm bringing... You would have to go back and check it. I'm not sure if I bring the second one or not. Especially if I don't know if they play the Boros Anthem or not. So here I'm probably going for Farsight first. Just always try to hold up white mana for Thrull in case they would for some reason decide to flash in reinforcements now, which it kind of like smells like. I don't know that, but I'm suspecting a flash card here, and the only flash card in the deck usually is reinforcements. To manually tap the Payland here, hold up white. Deciding to hide the Might here for now. Can flash into Thrull in response. And also this sets us up for 6 mana, right? I know there's Flowering on top. I have triple white this way, both triple white this way and 6 mana, so I can double spell. Not that it's that relevant here versus Boros versus Gruul mana, sorry, available, but in general I always want to play Flowering first if they have like 2 mana up, so that the legendary creature I want to follow up with has Ward right away as well. This is enough for this match here, going up to rank 2. Okay, could be Boros again, could be Artifact Aggro. I'm doing a little tryhardy face stopping stuff. You don't have to bother do that yourself, of course. I played the Brushland here also intentionally. Oh no, on the play, big stuff, Monka Giga. Because I have the Great Hall, I don't have to pay life or anything anyways, and this way I just don't straight away give away that I'm playing Legends, which I would have done if I would have played the land that I would have played normally. Alright, which would have been the Plaza here, game or turn 1. Okay, got land number 3, 2 1-drops, and yup. We'll also get the Knight. That looks like a pretty decent start from the opposing side here. Probably a little bit too hard to catch up from on the draw here. Basically also needed like halfling on turn 1. But yeah, kind of close to the somewhat best start, perhaps. But yeah, it's okay. Can't go for Kellan here because I'm under play. So going for green here. Needed for far side, needed for Kellan. Most likely going for Frodo here. Get the Chupacabra ticking. There's a Mara. Turn 2. It's 3 toughness. I have to give Frodo 2 buffs. Or 1 buff and stage 3 on the ring in order to take her out. Have to go for Crucius Fernado. It's interesting actually, also made a cut here, was again as so many times thinking longer than it looks here before making that decision, because I kind of want this land of course, but I need ways to buff up Frodo. So I need to double spell with Inti and Kellan, so I can't discard any of them, and I don't really want to get rid of Arwen either. Maybe I missed something, but I think this was the thought process behind there. And here I'm trying to get a counter here. I can actually keep this because obviously I want to pump up Frodo here to drip power with Inti. But I'm not exiling it with Inti because I get to stage 3 even here with Frodo. And stage 2 allows me to loot first. Also gives me an extra draw step with Inti, because Inti works that way with loot, which I mentioned earlier is just not a combo. And I'm trying to hit my land here besides putting Frodo to 3 power, which is of course the main objective of this anyways. So now I have to sector Urbanicorn. Going for Knight. Really looking for my thralls here too, I guess. But yeah, I guess this has just been enough because Frodo just keeps getting bigger and just chops up all their creatures one by one on the play here, which seems fair, I guess. So it might have looked a little bit premature, the concession there, but I think actually rather understandable. Okay, on the play here, sorry, on the draw here now again. And they have a decent start. I'll have to see if that works out. Sad passive Mary here. But gotta work with the 2-drop I have, and yeah, there's the Anthem. Kind of forced to block here, just deciding which one. So I want to go for Crucius, but kind of have to stay alive. Again, here I also was longer thinking, and the thought process or the decision I came to eventually was make him have it, if I'm playing for my outs, because Glissa either chops off also one creature one by one each turn, or just removes the call. And I think the decision why I played Crucius before combat here was because I wanted to hold back Glissa, but then changed my mind and decided to not double down and just attack anyway. So I should have probably played Crucius post combat, but probably does not matter too much. And as I just pointed out, they lost a blocker, which is really relevant here, as you can see, since they were not able to convoke out the knight for 1 less mana, to have 1 less mana to play another thing. They were obviously losing a creature, and then they also were not able to find 3 drops because they didn't have CMC or Convoke 3 for the Knight Errant. So quite relevant here, and just going for Crucius attack since Crucius is not blocking. I want to hold back Tajic because he is indestructible. Want to obviously attack with Glissa. I could have put, and I was definitely also thinking about that, put the ring on Glissa to make sure that she can take out the enchantment here. But if they block Glissa with the 5/5, I'm kind of fine anyways, right? I also would have got to keep around my Tajic creature here, if that were the case. So he had Jero here, by the way. This can be a Ceres, can be a Joda, can be a Jero. Definitely worth trying all of them. Obviously Joda would be better here in this matchup, or in this spot. So I have to play the Halfling here as well to give Jero haste. But I do have the removal for it, so I guess it would not have mattered if it would be Joda or not, but deciding to hold back actually both of them, the Tajic and the Glissa, to just play it safe, because I am in a commanding whatever position here. I have the Thrall, which of course I would love to have on the board, but I had to go for Jero plus Halfling there, of course, right? And yeah, I can't get it into play most likely next turn. Maybe can hold up Plaza for some unlikely exile removal for Tajic. And if Tajic gets to stick around for a turn, I get probably Spark Trooper, or even technically Aurelia if I go for 2 maps even. I was definitely thinking about going for 2 of them in case I don't hit a land, but a non-land here as I do. But the thing is, I was reading Tajic then again, is I think you only get the creature from the spellbook equal exactly. And obviously Spark Trooper is perfect here, right, because of the lifelink. And its size, like 6 power, works perfectly versus 6 toughness of the Warden there. But yeah, I think you only get the exact mana value creature equal to the exact number of counters from Tajic, as I read it. So that was just another reason to go for the Trooper, first. I think the name is Spark Trooper, but yeah. And yeah, this is a way Glissa can be used with, which is nice. Which is definitely something to keep in mind with Glissa. That was a pretty good turn. Can keep up Thrall, take up Crucius. Trooper has to sack itself, but that's fine. Plaza is active, and I'm looking at an Aurelia that comes in quite hot next turn. I'm also looking at rank 1 again. Nice. Well, that was the footage. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.